in accordance with South Carolina Code of Laws, 1976, Section 30-4-A, as amended, the following have been notified of time, date, place, and the agenda of the meeting. This radio station, Barnwell, advertising Herald, Bamberg, and the Times and Democrat, Orangeburg. Let the record reflect that Bamberg has 3 board members present. Mr. Tony Duncan, Ms. Gwendolyn Bamberg, and Mr. John Wilson, am I correct?
Hires.
And Superintendent Dottie Brown, along with Districts 2, Beverly Bonaparte, Blossom Thompson, Loretta Goodman, Larry Bias, and Mr. Tony Holman, along with our Superintendent, Dr. Sojourner. Moment of silence, please. Thank you. Without objection, I approve the agenda as written. Good evening to all. Welcome to this joint meeting of the Bamberg 1 and Bamberg 2 school boards. Our meeting tonight is to provide our community the opportunity to speak directly to and hear from our legislature delegation regarding the consolidation of our school districts. First, I want to thank Senator Brad Huddle and Representative Justin Bamberg for their willingness to meet with us by video tonight. As we get started, I realize that we have people here who do not approve of consolidation and those who approve of consolidation. Whether we should consolidate or not is not for tonight's discussion. Tonight, we are here to get a better understanding of the consolidation process from our legislation delegation. The answer to the questions will be the most helpful to us as we move forward. Before we begin, I would like to introduce Mr. Dean Whitmer, would you please stand? Our consultant. This is his first day, and we look forward to his help as we move towards consolidation in a way that puts the education of our children first. With that being said, I want us to have a constructive conversation that will point toward a bright future for our children. Now I'll turn it over to Mr. Whitmer.
Well, good evening, everybody. Really appreciate you having me here. The Honorable legislators, Mr. Hutto and Mr. Bamberg, thank you very much. I appreciate the invitation to help you out. I am looking forward to it, and I look forward to working with both superintendents and board chairs as we move forward. You know, this process is difficult, but it's doable. I've been there before, but we have to remember that it's in the best interest of the children of Bamberg County. And as I've been able to come around this district just for a few days, these are great, great communities with a common goal of making sure that you get the best education for your children. I congratulate the consolidation team for the plan that they've got going already. There's been a lot of work on all the people that have done that, so congratulations. You know, in my experience as a school superintendent in 2 big districts and in a county school system in Ohio, you know, the opportunities are immense, but there are some challenges, and I think the community needs to hear from you as you go forward. But I really think that my role will be as a neutral person to help in leadership development through the consolidation process, organizational change if need be, and help the community and staff get through this process. And I always say something like, keep your eye on the prize for the children. The prize is at the end. You've done a great job in the building process in both the school districts. Now it's time to help move forward, and I think it could be a very good process. And I just want to congratulate board members. This is a challenging time for all of you, so congratulations, and I will help you in any way possible to make sure this goes smoothly. At this point, you've got to always remember the goal that you guys have set forward in the plan has been to help improve student achievement from today, tomorrow, and in the future. Because we don't even know what education is going to look like, and if we forgot that, back in March, and I was talking to the technology director today, back in March when everybody was going to school 5 days a week till today, it's been an immense change for your children. So, but sharing services are good opportunities to do so. So but I think I'm willing to help in any way possible. Now, what I have put in front of me is some questions. Do we want to start that? How would we like to start? Want to talk to the representatives, some introductions at that point?
Yes.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Hey y'all,
Hey.
can y'all hear me okay?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
At this point, there are some questions that were given to me prior to the meeting. Want me to go ahead and start with those? Would that be a
Yes.
couple? Okay. This is a question, there's 4 questions on this first email. I will read them verbatim as much as possible. The original request from the state was for consolidation of school services. From there, we've entered into discussions of consolidating school districts, which is not the same. In order to consolidate school districts, it requires a bill sponsored by our local state delegation, which would be Bamberg and Hutto. Sponsorship and proposal of this bill does not require citizen input or consensus. Because of these ongoing discussions, should the citizens of Bamberg assume that Representative Bamberg and/or State Senator Brad Hutto will sponsor a bill for consolidating our school districts?
All right, I will jump in here. Hope everybody's doing well. And if at any point it cuts out or the audio gets unclear, please just let me know. The first thing I'd like to say is at this point, people need to understand, and for any of the citizens that are listening, there is no legislation that has been filed consolidating the districts. Okay, so there is no bill right now. I saw that some folks were circulating consolidation bill language or whatever that came from when Orangeburg consolidated. That language is very interesting story there, but we don't have a consolidation bill right now. So I think that's important to throw out there. I'm going to try to go through this piece by piece. All right, I don't really know that the original request from the state was for the consolidation of school services. My understanding was that there were some issues, I believe maybe with food services or something like that. And what ended up happening is Bamberg 1 and Bamberg 2 commenced to working together to improve the quality of food services across the county. I don't know whether or not that was mandated or not. That would be something that went on between the Department of Education and the districts, but I do know that started. Yes, the only way that consolidation occurs is through state legislation. That would be a bill either filed by myself as the House member for the district, or legislation filed by Senator Brad Hutto. But there's also a third option, and that would be legislation filed by any one of the other 123 members of the House, or any one of the other 45 senators in the state. So those are the 3 options at which consolidation can occur. I would disagree. I think the answer to this is no. Okay, sponsorship and proposal of a consolidation bill does not require the input of citizens or consensus. That is not how this works. Obviously, both Senator Hutto and myself have come to numerous meetings. We both have fielded questions and calls from the public. You, as school board members, have held public meetings to talk to citizens. And there has been continuous input on the issue of consolidation, not just this year, not just last year, but in years prior. With regards to a bill moving forward, As both Senator Hutto and myself have said, we are not going to force anybody to do anything. I believe there has been substantial pressure from the South Carolina Department of Education to consolidate in these smaller areas. Bamberg County is one of just a handful that still has more than one school district. The House and the Senate collectively have worked on education reform legislation. Part of that legislation is finally trying to address some of the inadequacies and some of the issues that have plagued our school districts across the state for many years, dating back to the original corridor of shame. And part of that, the state has begun to incentivize consolidation in these smaller districts. That would be in Bamberg County, which has 2, in Barnwell County, which has 3. In Florence, you have Timmonsville, which is a very small district. Hampton, they are also looking at it. And we find ourselves in a situation where we don't have to do it, right? Obviously, the boards have meetings, they've reviewed finances, they've spoken to constituents, just as Senator Hutto and I have. The decision was made, the votes were taken, that each district wanted to move forward with consolidation as something that is in the best interest of the children of Bamberg County long term, and that is the direction that we have been moving. If we do not consolidate, I am of the firm belief that it is only a matter of time before this county is forced to consolidate. Senator Hutto and myself are just 2 people that make up a very large body. And as other districts, for example, in Barnwell County, they are consolidating now from 3 to 1. I mean, 3 to 2. You have Blackville, Hilda, and you have Williston who are consolidating. Part of, I think, the energy behind consolidating now is, and I spoke with Superintendent of Education Molly Spearman today to get absolute clarity. There is still $7 million available that is going to be apportioned to a consolidated Bamberg County district upon the passing of consolidation legislation and upon the appointment of a new board for that consolidated district. That is a part of the incentive package. The state wants to see counties have one district, and they are trying to make it easier, but also help with some of the financial burden. So there is $7 million currently available for that. If we don't do it, then we will get nothing. And I think at the end of the day, what we're looking at is we will be looking at a forced consolidation when Bamberg County is one of only 2 districts, or one of only 2 counties in the state that doesn't. I think we'll have to do it, and it will be done without any of the financial incentive. So that was just some extra information. As it stands right now, unless the individual districts decide otherwise and say take another vote to vote against consolidation, the plan is to move forward. Myself, Senator Hutto, the school board, to my knowledge, has been considering input from citizens. So there are 15,000 people that live in this county, so I'm sure that not everybody has been talked to, but just because a citizen may not have individually been talked with, either directly or indirectly, does not mean that no one is taking input from citizens. I think that's a misnomer that may be floating around, but it's not accurate at all. In fact, probably 20 of the gray hairs I have in my beard have come strictly from consolidation discussions with citizens this week. So that's my answer to the first part.
I guess I'll respond to the first part. But first of all, I agree with what Representative Bamberg said. There is some there was a mandate in the appropriations bill maybe a year or two ago that did require some shared services agreements. And I think those have been ongoing, and that's not really the issue, but that was part of the question. What was there? It did start off with shared services as far as what the state was asking us to do. After that became the incentive program that Representative Bamberg addressed, which is that there is a near unanimous consensus in Columbia that every county ought to have one school board. And while it's up to Representative Bamberg or myself to introduce that bill, if we wait until we're the last ones, he's right, that they'll just say they're going to go ahead and do it. So rather than force anybody to do it, we're trying to get people to discuss it openly, like y'all are doing, like we're doing, to iron out any difficulties that might be associated with consolidation and to move forward with consolidation. We do have the incentive money available this year of $7 million. We had planned to have more and still possibly will have more. You know, the COVID issue has turned our budget upside down a little bit, but I don't think anybody thinks we're not going to get out of this situation. It might not be this year, but we're going to get out of this situation and get back to normal at some point in the future and go back to the line of thinking, which is each county needs a school board and one school board. So we're heading in that direction, and we want to build a consensus. But that doesn't mean it's going to be unanimous. No matter what Representative Bamberg and I do, or what you as school board members do, you're not going to please every single person. We understand that. What we're trying to do, though, is address concerns and have y'all, on the terms that you would like, move forward with consolidation. And when I say the terms that you would like, there are a lot of open parameters that can vary from district to district. If anybody was looking at the Orangeburg legislation, I would urge you not to use that as a template, but look to maybe the Clarendon legislation or the Hampton legislation as the model going forward. Bills have been filed in both of those counties, and those consolidations are ongoing, as is the one in Florence, as is one in Barnwell. So most of the districts that were offered the opportunity to accept an incentive to move forward are, and I hope Bamberg is and will be on that list.
Thank you. There's another part of that question, but it does say, will you consider the input for concerns of citizens and school board members? I think both of you addressed that already. So.
Yeah, the answer is absolutely we will. I'm not telling you that everybody will be totally happy with what the result is, but we obviously will consider any kind of input that either citizens or the board wants to give.
Good. Second question, the selling points for consolidating school services, not school districts, was the cost savings and more dollars per student. Considering the remaining debt for Bamberg's buildings project and the new debt of the building in Denmark, which was supported by Representative Bamberg, will consolidation still offer a cost savings for the state and citizens?
You want me to take that?
No, I'm happy to go here. And I think there was another part there too, but let me say this. There are no selling points, okay? And this isn't a game. This isn't, you know, somebody's trying to sell anybody anything, dude. Like, we're talking about real life options and possibilities for the future of this county, education in this county. Consolidating school services, you know, and I'm going to take my political hat off here and just speak very, very real to these issues, okay? Consolidating school services or other half steps are things that if they were going to be done, and this is my personal opinion as a 33-year-old who, Lord willing, has got another 50, 60 years to live in Bamberg County, okay? Those are things that, if they were going to be done, should have been done before we got to the point where we are one of just a few counties left in the state with 2 districts. If you look at what has been going on, we see certain writing on the wall, right? Decline in population across the county. Decline in school enrollment across the county. And there are a number of issues and things that lead us to that point. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. That's where we're at, okay? Consolidation, long-term, right? This isn't a short-term thing here. Consolidation, long-term, I believe, will save people in this county money, right? If you're unhappy about the taxes you pay today, you know that one reason you pay the high taxes that you do pay is because we have a declining population, which means there is less people, there are less industry to spread the financial burden of operating across in Bamberg County. How do we fix that long term? We improve education in the county, right? And that starts with looking at things that can be done. For example, consolidating. So yes, I do think that long term it will save the citizens of this county money. One thing that, well, I'll bring that up later. I don't know how to answer the question about cost savings for the state. I think that's something that would probably be more directly to the superintendent of education and what they give the districts. I'm not informed with regards to how much money each district gets from the Department of Education and things of that nature. I think that's something that the school, each individual district's financial person would be able to answer. But yes, consolidation long term, I think, will save citizens money.
And I agree. I mean, there's no doubt that, first of all, we got 2 superintendents, so they got 2 superintendent salaries. I don't know, we got 2 copy machines, we got 2 offices, we got 2 finance directors, we have 2 budgets, we have 2 school boards. So every time that you say we've got 2 of them, we're going to go from 2 to 1. And so things like IT, human resources, library, food, buses, all of those things, when you don't have to duplicate the job title and job responsibilities twice in a county the size of Bamberg, is bound to save money. Ultimately, too, it will equalize things like teacher pay across the county. It will equalize opportunities for IT, library services, human resources, all of those things. So, but I agree, it's not a game. It's not a question of we going to save money this year and not next year and then the year after that. Long term, there will be cost savings. In the short term, there will be costs that have to be endured as we go through consolidation. But in the end, by reducing the number of administrative personnel that it takes to run a district this size, we will save money.
Good, thank you. Question 3, if you intend to propose this bill regardless of citizens' voice, how do you explain to citizens of Bamberg why this consolidation is beneficial for them?
Well, I can tell you right now, I've had a lot of voices asking me to do it, so I don't know which voice you're talking about, but there are a lot of people in Bamberg who want consolidation.
And I'll add here, no one intends to propose any legislation regardless of citizen voices. I don't know where this stuff is coming from, okay? Like, again, there have been meetings. People have had the opportunity to talk at the meetings or talk after the meetings, ask questions, and again, okay, every single citizen in Bamberg County may not directly speak with myself, may not directly speak with Senator Hutto, or speak with any of the school board members, okay? I think that it is unreasonable to think that any one person can talk to everybody, okay? That said, if every single person living in Bamberg County has an elected school board member. Okay? That one member has a certain carved out area there. Okay? So what I would encourage people to do, right? I'm not saying what to do, right? This is just a suggestion, is if you have questions, talk to your individual school board members. Start there, right? Because that is the one closest to the individual school itself or the individual district itself. All right, people are welcome to ask me questions. People are welcome to reach out to me, okay? Just like Senator Hutto, I'm one person. I don't catch every email. I don't necessarily see every letter, right? It is the nature of the beast, okay? That is why it's always best to start local, because if you go to your school board member can then go to the full board, and then we all talk fairly often. So yeah, you've got that part. All right, the second part here, how do you explain to citizens of Bamberg why this consolidation is beneficial to them? Let me point out one thing here, and who knows, maybe there'll be a question that touches on this, but I find it very odd that a lot of the questions that are coming with regards to consolidation, no one talks about the doggone children. Like, it's always a bunch of adults talking about themselves, right? Or talking about money or whatever. And I understand the money aspect 100%. But even today, the first set of questions ain't got nothing to do with the kids and what's best for them. That is part of the problem here. That is one reason why here we are having to have this discussion today when a lot of this stuff could have been avoided, okay? Yes, consolidation will be of a benefit to people living in Bamberg because consolidation benefits the children and the teachers of the county, right? It's not rocket science here, okay? We've got to move forward as a county by consolidating now. Number one, if you do it now, while there is a substantial financial incentive on the table to do it, it ensures that you as a citizen in Bamberg save some doggone money. If we're talking about $7 million, would you rather consolidate with $7 million up front on the table with the opportunity and possibility to get more as the state continues to address education? Or would you rather get in your feelings because you don't want to deal with Denmark or whatever the case may be, and be forced by the state to consolidate later and receive no financial help? Then you're stuck in the same position, except it costs you more. So there's a financial benefit to citizens of Bamberg. And again, just like Senator Hutto touched on, and I mentioned earlier, the long-term benefits of moving forward now instead of waiting. Waiting is one reason why we're in the position that we're in right now. It's because we waited when other people didn't, right? To the people of Bamberg, and this might get a little bit beyond the realm of this particular question, but I feel like it's something that has to be said. When Bamberg won, and somebody can remind, do you all remember what year Bamberg 1 did the original bond?
2013.
Does anybody know that off the top of their head?
20.
In the 12-13 school year.
2013.
2013?
2012-13 school year.
Yeah.
Sorry, you might not be
Okay.
yours.
So when Bamberg did their original bond, okay, the amount borrowed, I believe, was what, $28 million. Okay? So Bamberg 1 they were in need of school facilities. Right? The children needed a better school facility. The teachers needed a better facility to flourish in to help nurture these children, okay? And everyone saw fit in Bamberg to say, okay, let's do the $28 million bond, and get a new K through 5 school, kindergarten through 5th grade. That is who goes to that elementary school. Okay, fast forward just a few years later, Denmark goes and says, we need new facilities. We need new facilities for our students and for our teachers to flourish in as they nurture these children. And Bamberg 2 goes and does a bond for $38 million. Okay, so just 10 million more, right, to do a K through 8th grade and renovate the high school. Okay, so $28 million in Bamberg 1 to do a K through 5th school,
6.
$38 million to do K through 12 in Bamberg 2. Okay, we can't have our cake and eat it too, right? So at the time that first bond was taken in Bamberg, everybody knew, and the numbers showed that the population was slowly declining. I believe if you look at the enrollment numbers, it's not like enrollment was going up, okay? So we were in almost the same situation that we're in now with Bamberg 1, right? And consolidation is always talked about every year. There are rumors. Some people say we need to do it. Some people say we don't. And when Bamberg 1 did the $28 million bond, everybody didn't, consolidation, whatever. But it's not like it wasn't a real reality. People may not have just wanted to recognize that it was a real reality. So if you're in Bamberg, you can't be upset with Bamberg 2 doing the same thing that y'all did to get a new facility, again, for the benefit of the children. These kids only get one chance to get an education. And it's proven that if you have adequate facilities, children do better in school. Right? So, yeah, that's my long answer to a very short question. So there.
There's a last part of that, it's more of a comment. However, consolidation will force the school board to combine the debt.
That's true.
Yeah. Okay. Question 4. It has been mentioned that the school consolidation can help with improving the test scores in Denmark. However, other school districts are seeing gains in test scores with more support from state department specialists and services without consolidation. Specifically, share how this consolidation benefits the local citizens.
All right. The first part there is, I am not personally aware, so I can't speak on whether or not other school districts have saw an increase in test scores without consolidation, because majority of the counties in this state already got one district, so they don't need to consolidate. But I'm not aware of any of that data, so I can't comment on that. But I will say this, I agree completely. Like, obviously, the more support, resources that the South Carolina Department of Education gives any school district is going to be of a greater benefit to the children with regards to testing or anything, healthy eating options, whatever the case may be. So a part of this discussion, right, when we talk about consolidations, not just to look at the consolidation piece, you've got to view that in a lens through which you also see the state itself, via the General Assembly, finally stepping up to the plate to do what many of us have been asking and demanding for the longest, which is finally please take a good look at education in this state and how we can help move certain parts of the state forward. So there, I think, I think there has been, and I think there will continue to be, and in speaking with Molly Spearman, the Superintendent of Education today, a continued commitment from state level government, General Assembly, Department of Education included, to try and assist these districts with, providing services to the children.
Mr. Hutto?
And I think I answered the other part with the last explanation about how consolidation benefits the local citizens.
Okay. Anybody else?
I have a question. Can you tell us what happened to Bill S-203, which was the bill, that was going through the legislature that enticed us with these funds, and then sort of strong-armed us, saying that if we didn't do it, that if we didn't go through with the consolidation or present a plan by August the 1st, that we'd be forced to merge. Can you speak on what happened to Bill 203?
The COVID pandemic, which is what happened to every bill in the legislature this year, we just like businesses and schools and everything else didn't meet, we didn't meet either. So nothing advanced on any either of the calendars of the House or the Senate after, other than the budget and responses to the COVID pandemic after we shut down.
So this bill would have to be reintroduced in the
That's
Senate?
correct.
Okay. Okay, and the second comment while I'm speaking, I guess, is, talking about the bond debt. I think the person asked you a question there. And, my constituents, which are, of course, your constituents, whenever they approve the bond debt for Bamberg 1, just like District 2, Bamberg District 2 did for their bond, the voters got to vote on that in a referendum. And I think, the people that have talked to me are feeling that now they're going to, I'm speaking from a Bamberg District 1 standpoint, are going to have to pick up that debt now and, pay for it for the next 25 years, when they're already halfway through their bond debt. And they were questioning me on whether, legally we can take on that additional debt for them whenever it hasn't been voted on in a referendum.
Well, the answer legally is yes. Once we consolidate the districts, if that happens, the budgets and debts and assets of the districts will be combined. So that just will happen. It's happened before. Consolidation has happened multiple times in multiple districts across the state, and there's not really a question about the legality of that. Now, the equity of that, I think Representative Bamberg spoke to a little bit earlier. Both districts have taken on debt. It's just not unusual. Almost every school has debt. And there is what we would hope is, and education is a state responsibility. And that's not lost on Representative Bamberg or myself. And we're fighting every day to make sure that the state pays its fair share. But anytime they base the allocation of money and resources to schools based on school population, we lose out because we have a very small student body and a shrinking student body. It is our job collectively to persuade our fellow members of the General Assembly that they've got to help us in a different way. And we did that effectively last year when we got there to put up $50 million to go to rural, small districts that would consolidate. And there is the prospect that we will be able to renew that, and I have to put the caveat, after we get past the COVID pandemic. But South Carolina was on a track to continue on economically to do well. I mean, look, we are the home of BMW, Boeing, Volvo. We got a lot of, we've had some setbacks, but we've got some new announcements coming too. Unlike other states, South Carolina has a bright future. Our economy, our environment, our friendliness, our weather, our people are conducive to attracting new industry and business. Now, our job is to make sure that some of that gets into the rural area, because quite frankly, a lot of it's gone into the urban areas, which are growing faster than we can talk about. I mean, there are school districts being created in South Carolina, not school districts, but schools that are being created in South Carolina that are larger than the entire district of Bamberg every year in the suburbs of Rock Hill and Somerville. So it's not like schools in general are not growing, but our school is not. So we've got an opportunity and an obligation to make sure that we fully fund education in rural South Carolina. We're gonna have to work on that. But I don't think it's any question, but it can be done. There's no question that if we consolidate, it'll be legal.
If I can add to that, Senator Hutto, I think part of it is we've got to correct this misnomer that is floating around. There are citizens who somehow think that Bamberg 1 has almost paid the debt off, which ain't true. And maybe finance will know the specific number. I want to say, isn't it like 24? The last time I saw it, it was outstanding debt of like $24 million. So it's not as though, Bamberg 1 citizens have been paying on the bond debt for their elementary school and they owe $1 million on it. It's still fairly early on in the process. So I think that's an important point there. The other thing that I would encourage people to think about, okay, which again requires folks to think long term, not now, right? If you look at the data for Bamberg County, what you will see is the population has declined, school enrollment, the number of students in our schools has declined. If you drive around and you look at the primary residences across this county, there are more and more and more what used to be primary residential homes that are for sale in this county, right? In the direction that we are going, if you really want to think about your pockets long term, don't consolidate. And people for some reason think that, all right, by not consolidating, my taxes are going to go down, right? And that's what people think, right? Because this is a very simple way of looking at it. And I'm sorry if someone mentioned or told you at some point that it was guaranteed that, after a certain amount of time your taxes go down, okay? That's not necessarily the best way to look at it. If you don't consolidate and you are in Bamberg 1, okay, and your taxes are X right now, well, as the population continues to go down, should it continue to go down over the next 5 or 10 years, right? Unfortunately, we've seen Rocklawn close down, okay, which is no longer operating. That was located within the boundaries of Bamberg School District 1, right? Blackwater Barrels was located within the boundaries of Bamberg School District 1. So over 5 or 10 years, with the losses of that business, with the decreasing in population, your taxes could very well go up because there are less people carrying the burden of paying these things. So don't think that just because, if we don't consolidate, my taxes are definitely going to go down over time, because that's not how it works, okay? This is math, this is numbers, okay? This is not what makes you feel good, this is what real life is. So, if you want to talk about what's best financially for citizens long-term here, I think it's important to look at all of the possibilities, not just the possibilities that someone thinks is good for them, right? Because that very well may not be the way it pans out. If you consolidate, and now it becomes a collective, right? There's no them, there's no us, right? And I don't mean that in response to Bamberg 1 versus Bamberg 2. I'm talking about it becomes citizen of Bamberg County teaming up with citizen of Bamberg County to address the main issue of education in this county, right? And we spread the burden out across the entire county, which long term I think will actually benefit everybody.
May I ask a question to both of you? And it's this: when we think about schools, and I've been in school business long enough to know that we keep talking about this debt, Bamberg debt, Denmark debt, and how much they owe in their school, how much we owe in our school. But as these schools progress and the years move on, isn't it true that on the Bamberg side, because they built a new elementary school, which is now, I don't know, what, 6 years old? And then they did some repairs to their 7 through 12 schools. But as time moves on, isn't it true that there are things that are going to have to be done to improve those schools? Say in 5, 10 years, you got to look at your roofs, you got to look at other improvement in the schools, and is that going to call for some additional monies and bonds have to be issued to get those things repaired as well? Isn't that a part of it too? Because unless you talk about building something that's new on the other side, or I don't know what's going to happen in terms of the merger or whatever we're going to do. But isn't it true that there are going to be funds needed to improve as schools go on and as these years move forward?
No building lasts forever, and no building lasts long without proper maintenance. So there will always be ongoing physical plant needs for not only your school districts, but all school districts across the state. I would hope that at some point we would go back and revisit what we did in 1998. I think Justin was maybe 2 at the time. But we had a statewide bond bill then, and actually put statewide money into school facilities, and we could do that again because we paid off that 1998 debt. But having said that, whether we'll ever get back to a statewide school building program, which we should, I don't know. There will always be building-related costs as you say, roofs need to be repaired, air conditioners go out, technology changes, and we need to upgrade the fiber or the hardware in the buildings. So you can't just ever pay for something one time and think it's gonna last forever. It just doesn't work that way.
This question does have an interest. It says, and you've answered some of it. Could you give them a question from someone who asked for a comparison of the debts? And this must be a Bamberg one. Our original amount borrowed at what interest and when it will be paid, etc. Denmark's original debt and interest. You know, they're asking for specifics. That really is a finance question as much as anything as I see it. However, the question could be, is that what was the bond debt interest rate 7 years ago? And the bond debt interest rate at Bamberg 2 in the last couple of years, and with the interest rates of bonds down, can you, as a consolidation, consolidate the bond debt interest rate to try to keep your total bonded indebtedness similar? That's a question for the finance people, the banking people. But if you have a call feature in your bonds, all right, there is a possibility that as we move through this process, you could consolidate stuff, and again, I'm not going to say it can be, but it has been done other places, is to consolidate the bonds for a lower interest rate, which could cut the amount of time or cut the amount of money you pay per year. That's probably a good question for the legislators, but they probably have to have finance people to ask that question too. So that's a consideration in this process. I think that question's hard because you almost have to have a finance expert answer it. Those are the questions that I have in front of me. Do other board members have other questions that people have given you to ask our legislators?
None.
Okay. Comments from our legislators. First of all, you've done an excellent job of answering the questions, and it's good for me to hear that too. But I live in a county that is a consolidated district already in Aiken County, so I understand the process of how that's handled.
Well, I'll say this. We want this to continue to be an open process. You can contact me. My Senate office is on the internet, the website. I have a person there full time who answers the phone. The email is public on the website. I've already gotten some questions about consolidation. If you've got more, please send them. I know that Representative Bamberg feels the same way. We want to be as transparent about this process as we can, but we also want to transparently tell you that it's going to happen at some point. Right now, we have the opportunity for it to happen on terms that we negotiate, that we decide, and with incentive money from the state. If we don't take advantage of that, I'm not telling you it'll happen next year or the year after, but sometime, I would say within the next 5 to 10 years, it will happen. And it may not be on terms that two of us, or whoever might be in office then, can control. But right now, the ball is not only in our court, but the ability to shape the ball is in it before us, because we can talk about how we're going to design the board, how many people are going to be on the board, where the district lines are going to be. There's so many things that we could do to shape the legislation now. We may not have an opportunity to later. And right now, the state's offering us $7 million to do it this year, with the prospect that they're going to offer us some more money as we go forward, because that's what they want us to do.
Could you tell us more about that $7 million that you're saying the state is going to offer us? Is that in addition or on top of what they have given us already? Or is that something new that has come out lately that's going to, I guess, work with the two districts so that we can use it? Tell me more about that, because I'm not clear on that.
The money would go to the consolidated, once the bill is introduced and an interim board is put in place. And consolidation doesn't have to happen. Well, just let's make sure this is clear. When the bill is introduced, even when it passes, that doesn't mean consolidation happens that day. It sets forth a timeline over which the two independent boards cease to exist, and a new consolidated board takes over the finances of both districts, which may continue to operate over a period of time because, for instance, in Hampton and Clarendon, I think they've set their consolidation dates for 2022 maybe. So it doesn't have to happen, it does not happen as soon as the bill passes. That's something we can decide. Do we want it to happen this coming year or the year after that? Do we want to stagger the elections in for the new school board members as we go? But to answer your question about the money, my understanding is the $7 million that is set aside this year to incentivize Bamberg is still sitting in Columbia, but will not and cannot be released until Representative Bamberg and I introduce and pass the framework for consolidation at some date in the future.
Correct. And then the money comes to the new consolidated district for them to use on whatever.
Quick question, is there a deadline now? Because the Bill 203 established August 1st as the deadline. And since that bill wasn't passed, what is the new deadline?
There is no new deadline on that, as far as 203 is concerned, but there has been no effort to take the $50 million away that was appropriated to the State Department of Education. And I've looked at future versions of the prospective budget coming up. That money is going to be good money. Normally, you spend money from July to July, okay? But July is obviously passed. That money didn't disappear. It didn't go away. It didn't go back into the general fund. It's still being held for this purpose. Everybody knows that we're in a healthcare emergency right now. So there's no attempt to, play fast and loose with any rules about where the money goes. The money's going to be there if we move forward now. When I say now, it has to be not today, but I think we've got to move forward within the next few months. If we don't, it's incentivized money, okay? And if we don't use it, Clarendon, Hampton, Barnwell, some of the other districts that are, the money ain't going back to the general fund, they'll share that money.
Right.
The other districts that are consolidating.
So what is the deadline on it then? If we don't do it by, what is the, it sounds like.
I don't know, I'm unaware that there's a deadline as an absolute drop dead deadline, but I'm telling you as a practical purpose, it would be advantageous for us because we only have, Representative Bamberg and I only have one bite at the apple left this year, and that's a 2-week term at the end of September, from like September the 13th through the 20-something. That's the earliest we could do it and the only time we could do it this year. If we don't do it then, we couldn't do it before January.
So then the money would disappear if it's not done, say, by January?
I'm telling you, I don't know of any attempt to make the money disappear, but unless there's some good faith effort to move forward, the superintendent's got no reason to believe if we can't, all the other districts that were given this opportunity are moving forward. If Bamberg wants to avail themselves of this opportunity, then we need to be moving forward. I think it's up to Superintendent Spearman to, in her own sort of discretion, determine whether we are in good faith moving forward or not. And so far, she has, because she hadn't pulled the money away. She appreciates the fact that the boards have met, that they've talked about it, that there have been public meetings, that there's been public discussion. I think as long as we're having, but we can't discuss it forever, okay? Well, I mean, I know y'all are kind of asking, what's the deadline? I always hate to wait for the deadline. If we think this is the right thing to do, let's go ahead and move forward and do it. If you don't want to do it, then the sooner we just tell her we're not going to do it, the sooner she can let that $7 million be spent somewhere else.
Question, please.
Go ahead.
All right. Each board for District 1 and District 2, each of us consists of 5 board members. How are we going to determine who will be the representative of those board members that are already seated in order to get this moving so that we can get the $7 million? In other words, we need to consolidate the board, and once we consolidate the board, then we will know, or they will know, that we mean business, and then we will have our $7 million to do what we need to get done. So when are we going to draw that line of who is seated on the board already to make up the new board for consolidation? You understand me?
That has to be.
Yeah, I think I follow you. The way that, and this is something that these are continuing discussions here, okay? So I will use an example of Blackville and Williston and what the plan has been so far over there that's been moving forward is how we come up with a new board for a consolidated district, okay? Because as it stands, it's not like there's anything that is filed that in and of itself just creates a new school board, okay? What is happening in Barnwell County between those two districts who are consolidating is once the legislation is filed and what was chosen, or what is the favored method right now, because nothing is locked in concrete, is that a new board for a consolidated district be appointed, okay? And the legislative delegation for Barnwell, which would be myself, Senator Hutto, and Representative Lonnie Holsey, would appoint the temporary board for a consolidated school district. Because it takes some of the local political pressure off of school board members who may have to initially run, for example. There are tough decisions that have to be made, et cetera, and then you would rotate them off, staggered XYZ. So there's not really a set answer to your question, because that has not been determined as far as how a new board gets put together. We are still in the beginning phases of still answering questions from citizens about how consolidation works. There still has to be multiple drafts of the legislation to make sure that it is something that each of the current boards approve of, and things like that. So we are still a ways off from getting to that point. The way that a consolidated district is going to have access to that $7 million, and Molly confirmed this, Superintendent Spearman confirmed it today, on the passing of consolidation legislation, which means it has to pass both chambers, the House and the Senate, and be approved by the governor, okay? That is the triggering fact. That paired with the creation of the new board, that is what you get. So just putting together a new board is not gonna give them access to $7 million. You've gotta have the legislation passed to get the new board appointed. Does that answer the question for you?
Kind of halfway, but we need, in order to move on before January 1, and this is August, we got September, October, November, December, which is 4 months to get a board for the consolidation in place. So how would we go about getting that consolidated board?
Well, the answer is gonna be there's no doubt, the consolidated board is gonna be appointed initially. And it could have 3 members, it could have 9 members, it could have 7, it could have that's why I'm saying we have the right ability to shape it however we want to right now. But the consolidated interim board does not have to have the same number of members as the ultimate elected board has. We could appoint a 3-member consolidated board with the idea that in 2 years there's going to be election for 7 board members. And there's no requirement that any of the current school board members be on the new consolidated school board that's appointed. Now, I'm not saying that we would, I mean, y'all obviously are very qualified and we want your wisdom and input over the years. So I'm pretty sure that there will be representation from the current boards on a consolidated board, but that's not a requirement, okay? The way that consolidation legislation takes place in a situation like this is that there will be an appointed board initially that will transition it into an elected board, probably over a staggered, with one set being elected 2 years from now, 2 years from whenever the appointment takes place, and the other set elected 4 years, and those appointed members will stay on the board until they either become elected members or until they roll off.
Okay, thank you.
Conversely, though, as you said, it could be 9 board members, and I'm gonna just throw, it could be 9 instead of 3 also, correct?
Oh, absolutely. It could be, generally speaking, most consolidated school boards mirror the same number of seats that the county council has, but it doesn't have to be.
Okay.
I mean, Orangeburg's interim consolidated board had way too many people on it. I think we had like 15 people on it, and then eventually it pared down to 9 elected people. And by and large, it's preferred that the future elected school board come from single-member districts, but there is no prohibition against 1 or 2 of the members being at large. If that's what the county, if that's what we pass in the legislation, but again, it gets back to we can tailor this the way that we want to tailor it going forward, but there is no requirement that the initial consolidated board have any particular design other than we're not going to be able to design a bill that allows for the election of the interim board. We're going to have to appoint the interim board.
Question to Senator Huddle and Representative Bamberg. We have already, Bamberg 1, Bamberg 2, sat down with our boards, came to a vote that we are going to move forward on consolidation. We've submitted a plan to Molly, the first phase. So the next thing that we need to do now is you two get a bill approved with an appoint board members so that we can move forward. Am I correct in that?
That's basically that's it.
Am I saying, because that's my understanding. Is my understanding correct that since both boards have agreed to move forward with consolidation, we've submitted a plan to Molly. Our next step now is for you, Senator Huddle and Representative Bamberg, to come up with a bill to pass and move forward with selecting, be it appointed boards or however, is that our next move?
Correct.
Okay.
The next step would be a, bill gets prepared. Senator Hutto, and I, file it to try and, get it through the House and Senate and get it passed. That bill would, I think, lay out, you know, how we're gonna appoint, a consolidated interim board and how the full board gets filled, et cetera. And then once that passes, then the two districts are consolidated at that point. So yeah, that's the next step.
Okay.
More than likely, as I look at the plan, that should be reflected in the plan. Don't you think, on page 7, bullet point 1, 2, 3, 4? So I'll make a note of that.
Is the plan approved?
No.
Can
No.
I say something? I have, Ms. Janet Walker is unable to physically attend tonight, but she is sending comments. I just want to clarify a couple of her comments that she has sent in. We have submitted a draft plan to Ms. Molly Spearman, and it has not been approved, just to show her the progress that we've made thus far. We are still in the working stages of developing a final plan to submit to her, and that is what we've been having our weekly or every other week meetings on, our working meetings. So just wanted to say to our legislators that we have submitted a draft plan to show what the work and progress that we've made. But we are still trying to solidify a final plan to submit to her for approval.
Well, the earliest that we can introduce a bill is only while we're in session, and the next scheduled session, I can't remember the exact, whether September 13th or 15th or 17th, but it's sometime in the middle of September when we're going back. We could introduce a bill then and pass it during that 2-week session if we're ready to do it and people are ready to move forward. If we don't do it then we won't have an opportunity to meet again as the General Assembly, absent something unusual. We won't meet again until January, and it won't take that long. We could probably pass it within 2 weeks. It takes 3 readings in the House, 3 readings in the Senate, signature of the governor, or should he have to veto it, but the governor is supportive of the consolidation process, so I can't imagine that he will. So I think we can get it done in 5 or 6 legislative days, which is really about 2 weeks.
So you're pretty hopeful that if we submit a plan between now and September, that when you meet in September, that can be presented, that'll be covered this go around?
Well, if the advantage of doing it in September is you get $7 million more than that. Okay. The disadvantage is you'd have to wait till January. So, we've got. I now realize that there's a lot of work to be done, and a lot of work has already been done, and we thank you for that. But we've got basically almost 5 or 6 weeks before we go into session to finalize whatever the 2 boards are wanting to propose. And then Representative Bamberg and I will look at it. We may accept parts of it and not accept the other parts, but we'll put together a plan that we think can pass. But we certainly, I am, and I think Justin is too, we're looking for y'all's input and guidance. And y'all, the only thing, and Representative Bamberg said this in the beginning, it can't be said enough. As long as the plan y'all submit to us is focused on the best interests of the children, then we and I are going to accept it. We get an idea that part of the plan is directed toward appeasing adults. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for something that's going to be positive for the future of the education of the children in Bamberg County.
Any other questions? For our legislators? At all?
If nothing else, Senator Hutto and Representative Bamberg, we thank you so much for that input, and I think that answered a lot of questions and concerns that I hope our viewing audience are satisfied with what we've done so far. And when our boards meet on this coming Monday, I'll ask Mr. Vaughn to get a copy of the plan so I can recirculate it as well as Ms. Walker, so that we can get that to you ASAP, so that we will have it ready for you guys. And you can look at it and go over it and prepare so that we can get this done in September. I thank everybody for coming. Mr. Bamberg, you were in when I introduced Mr. Dean Whitmer. He's our consultant going forward, and he'll send you his information so that you both have
Okay,
it.
thank you.
And I'll send it to you, and you can call me anytime. I'd be more than happy to help and field questions that we can have a discussion in our committee.
Thank
Thank you.
everybody for coming.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's no other questions or concerns. This meeting is now adjourned. So.
That's the extra.